All right, hello and welcome to Political Voice. I'm Moses Humphrey. Well, the waters are coming. Take heed and flee for your lives. Well, that's what perhaps all what the federal government had said is saying and may ever say about the clear and present disaster of flooding that's about to hit several Nigerian states in less than a week. Well, here we are. Now, here is a story. Let's just break it down for you. The Lagdo Dam in Cameroon is about to be the doors of the Lagdo Dam in Cameroon is about to be flung open with the attendant displacement it will bring on the villages in Nigeria that will be affected by its waters. But the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, says it has taken proactive and robust steps, in quote now, to contain floods in states within the southeast, especially those in riverine and lowland communities. Well, the southeast coordinator of NEMA, Ngozi Echeazu, disclosed this in Enugu on Sunday while fielding questions on NEMA's practical steps to contain and reduce the impact of flooding in the zone. Echeazu said that NEMA, in collaboration with relevant ministries, departments, and agencies, MDAs, was monitoring water levels in major rivers in states in the zone. And she also said that there had been sensitization on early planting and harvesting of farm products to reduce huge losses associated with flooding and mass mobilization of all available human and material resources to help save lives and properties. Well, Ichazu said the agency had concluded plans to get help and support for its flood quick response plan. Well, on the distribution of relief materials, Ichazu noted that NEMA had always been directly involved in distributing relief materials to beneficiaries. She said approved relief materials are usually distributed directly by NEMA and SEMA officials to the affected persons and communities, notwithstanding the ceremonial handing over of such materials to the state government. Well, I have with me in the studio CP Chooks, who is a former commissioner of police of your state. Good to have you with us in the studio.
Good morning to you and good morning to viewers.
Now, these waters from the Lagdo Dam in Cameroon, they're being opened about every year, every year. And each time, we have the problem of the waters displacing residents in areas that are close to, the dam, close to the share border with Cameroon and the rest of them. Why is this a perennial problem? Why haven't we found a more lasting solution to this issue of displacement of people because the waters in the dam have to, be allowed to flow out?
You see, that is the problem with the past leadership. It appears the government believe in fire brigade approach when issues like this come up. In the past, immediately after the Civil War, we used to have 5-year development plans that would do immediate, intermediate, and long-term planning, taking cognizance of a lot of issues, factors, especially things like this. But these days, it appears that the leadership are not keen, they are not interested in the welfare of the people. They are only interested in the coming election. You can imagine some people are already planning how they will win 2027. 2023 has not fully, entrenched. And they have not really kicked the ground, running, as they've been saying. So having said that, if we come to the issue of this flooding, it's been perennial, but it is not as if it's every year thing. The last we had that was bad was 2012. And since after 2012, 10 years later, that of 2022 happened. And now, good enough, the government of Cameroon saw the devastating effect it had. That's why they are warning us now. Then the question is, between that time and this year, what had the government done? I can't see anything they did except planning for election, doing campaigns.
Okay, do you think that the elections that came up took our minds off these things that might affect the people?
Definitely. And the people that are heading the NEMA, because they want to keep their jobs and retain their seats, did not raise the red flag to begin to alert the government that that thing that happened that last year may still repeat
May
itself
happen
this
again.
year. It may happen again. That would have given them enough room. Is it now that it is barely 1 or 2 weeks to the time you start saying you're doing sensitization? These are things they could have put in place. Not only sensitization, you have to provide alternative place that people can move to, like using schools, using churches, using town halls,
Now,
and so on and so forth.
those things are being put in place already. NEMA is saying that look, they are prepared.
Okay.
They have schools areas like that
Yes.
people will be moved to.
Yes.
But my issue is this: 7 days notice. Isn't that too short? I mean, it's not like we hear that there's a missile coming from somewhere or there's a bomb about to go off. This is a natural
Disaster.
thing. Well, not a disaster per se, but it's a natural thing. Water in the dams need to be shed.
Of course.
It's something that we should expect
Of course.
to happen.
Of
And here we hear that, the Cameroonians have they informed us 7 days ahead, and we're giving the people 7 days to move to higher ground. What do you make of that statement? Why 7 days? Isn't that too short?
It is too short. That is why I had expected the government could have been proactive by monitoring whatever is happening from the source, which is from the Cameroon highlands, where the water is coming. And the NEMA, with the relevant agencies responsible for things like agriculture, water resources, and all that, ought to have been working hand in hand with the Cameroonian authority to know exactly the situation of things. Since this thing is coming in the next 1 week, they could have raised the alarm probably the last 1 or 2 months. Then they'll now start making preparations, getting people sensitized, getting them prepared for movement. Because like the last year's situation or scenario took people unawares. They never knew that the devastation would go to that extent. But well, since it is like this, and we had experienced it twice now, 2012 and 2022, nobody will want to relive that experience. So they should start now to pack their things, the vital key things,
But
with a view to move.
CP.
Yes.
Let's look at this from a realistic point of view.
Exactly.
Moving houses in itself is a problem for
It
a lot
is
of people.
very
For
serious
someone like
problem.
me, if I have to move from one house to another, it's always a challenge.
It is.
Because I really hate to move.
It's a
I
difficult
hate to
thing.
move. So now imagine someone who schools are going to resume soon. All right, schools are resuming by September 4 in most states. So it's expected that children should be getting ready to go to school. Parents also are getting ready to settle things and put things in place. Now they will have to shelve those plans and have to gather their children and their properties, things that they know they don't want to lose. That's to tell you that they would even lose some things to move to God knows where.
Exactly.
Schools. Now, shouldn't we have some sort of structure, a better IDP camp? But I would not want to call it an IDP camp because we know what IDP camps look like. I would think of a structure like a building, a community that is above sea level, above ground, a place where proper housing will be built for things like this. So we know that when it gets to that month where you know that water will be released from dams or flooding if we hear that, if NIMET says, okay, flooding is about to hit, people can move into those places. Then when the water abates, people will now move back to their houses. Shouldn't we have that kind of structure in place? As against telling people, move to schools, let's vacate school compounds and, community centers, hospitals, so people can move in there for this time being.
I think the problem is twofold. One is the finance to do such a project, or by putting up such structures. That is one. Then two is that
The finance by government.
yes, financed by government. Then the second angle that is equally an issue that is very worrisome is that after they must have used the place for maybe 6 weeks, 2 months, and go back to their respective communities, what happens to that facility or those facilities? It will be totally vandalized. To the extent that by the time you get to those places, you will not recognize them anymore. They will make sure they remove from the roof to the doors, to the windows, even assuming it is block work, that one will be more expensive. They will break the walls and remove the blocks to go and build their own personal houses.
Now, who are these people?
These are communities. These are poor people. These are people, they are rural people who are mostly farmers, fishermen, and so on and so forth. And many of them they live in huts, they live in bachas made with rusty corrugated roofing sheets. Then you bring them to a place you would have used aluminum profile, maybe long span aluminum profile, to do the demarcations. Probably you are doing like cubicles or prefabricated buildings. These are expensive materials. They'll wait. As soon as the thing is over, everybody will begin to loosen the parts and take them to their houses to go and do homes for themselves or even improve what they have as houses.
Now, doesn't that speak to the level of poverty?
That's what we are saying. It is poverty.
So shouldn't that be addressed in itself?
To pull people out of poverty is another issue. The way the spendings by government, cost of governance, and reckless and irresponsible spendings by people in position of authority. How would they pull people out of poverty? So you see that pulling people out of poverty is more or less lip service. That's just the truth of the matter.
All right. Now, NEMA also said that they have been directly involved in the distribution of relief materials. And they said, look, that no matter, what do you make of that statement, really? Because we know what has happened in recent time. Let's look at the case of Adamawa. Is it Adamawa? Or
yes, it was Adamawa.
Where people had to break into NEMA warehouse, where some relief materials were stored.
Yes.
NEMA is saying, look, we will be involved in the distribution of relief materials. We have always been involved. And juxtapose this with the fact that we have also seen cases where aid agencies send materials to IDP camps, and those living in those IDP camps complain of not even having access to these things like mosquito nets, mattresses, food. They don't have access to it. All right. What do you make of the statement coming from NEMA that, look, they have always been involved in the distribution of relief materials, and they will ensure that they distribute materials to people that are affected? Can we trust that statement?
I don't trust that statement. They are just making the statement, to give confidence to the public that they are ever ready and they will live up to their responsibility. But right there on ground, that is never the situation. I even want to give you the recent happening. Okay. Like in Bayelsa, they have broken into the warehouses, I think NEMA warehouses and government warehouses, where they have stored relief materials for such emergencies. And the question is, those materials, have they been checking them to know?
No, the ones they broke into were also were materials stored in from 2022.
That's what I'm saying. Now, it is obvious that there must have been a motive behind that storage and not doing the distribution. Maybe because the election, governorship, is coming up by 11th of November. So they would have been planning to use it to distribute to supporters and will-be voters. And unfortunately, the people have been hungry, so they had to break in to lay their hands on whatever they could pick. And from what I saw in the social media, most of the, or good percentage of what they were bringing out, were already looking greenish.
Molds and
You know,
algae and the rest of them.
And all the rest of them, you know, termites and so on and so forth. Insects had already, so the thing has already become useless. So what do we gain by that? That means it is as if we are not focused, there's no sincerity of purpose in what we are doing.
So what then is the way forward? Because going by this mindset, a lot of other Nigerians that may be affected by the release of water from the Lagdo Dam might feel, I don't want to leave my house. Irrespective, I would rather stay here and bail water than go live in an IDP camp and go from, beg for food with my plate in hand.
No, the problem is this. It is not something of remaining in their, they can't remain in their houses. If you see the level of flood, in some cases, it's up to the roof level, like what they experienced in Anambra State, some of those riverine parts of Anambra, Anambra local government, OE, Anambra East, Anambra West, Yobaru local government, those places, they are lowland areas along the bank of River Niger and Anambra River. So the devastation got to the people who have story buildings. They had to move up to the first floor. And that was where they were staying. For you to go out, you have to use a canoe or speedboat. It was that bad. And if care is not taken, exactly the same thing is going to repeat itself this time around. And from what they have listed, well, I've not seen the full list of the states. They said between 11 and 12 states or so will be affected by that. And from my geographical knowledge, it will even be beyond those 12 states. I'm sure they didn't factor in Kwara and Niger. Kwara and Niger are not on the track of River Benue. But there is a confluence at Lokoja where the Niger and Benue meets itself. So when the tide is very, very high, it will start receding to the extent that the volume of water on the River Niger will begin to go high. So it means it's going to affect all those places, starting from Kainji in Kwara State, Jeba, all those places. They should also expect the same flood. Then Niger, the power state, will also experience the same thing because the river Kaduna also flows into River Niger. And that recession will also raise the volume of Kaduna River to the extent that people that live on the bank will also be affected. So they didn't look at that. And Kaduna River passes through Niger State to flow into River Niger. So all those places will surely get the impact of what we are expecting.
So now we might be seeing...
about 13 states.
About 13 states.
Yes, I calculated it, starting from Adamawa to Gombe, to Taraba, to Benue, to Nasarawa, down to Kogi, to Edo, to Delta, to Anambra, to Imo, to Bayelsa, to Rivers.
So basically, a lot more people.
A lot more than Kwara and Niger that I've just added now. That means about 13, 14 states should expect the impact of this flood
now
that is about to come.
From your analysis,
yes.
Do you think NEMA has the capacity?
I don't think so. You know this civil service or public service mentality. People will not come out to say things the way they are, just to please their political masters or people in position of authority. It is those of us who have been in government that have seen all those things, and we are out now. We are in a position to tell them the way it is, without minding whose ox is God. But for them, they will just be playing politics, trying to tell them, don't worry, everything is in order. We are in charge. We are on top
playing
of the
politics with
situation.
the lives of people.
Exactly. So they are doing all that to show that they can do it. But at the end of the day, when it comes to practical terms, they cannot.
Now, how do you respond to this? Because some Nigerians are of the opinion that we don't seem to have synergy between Nigerian authorities and Cameroonian authorities, seeing that we share boundary and we have this common issue of the dams and waters. Because if something like this is going to happen, we should have been in the know from the beginning of the year. What do you say to the fact that the relationship between the two is not what it should be? Countries now.
It's unfortunate that these are things that should be between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Nigeria, and whatever name they have for Cameroon. And they are supposed to work side by side or hand in hand. And this issue is a very monumental issue.
Why does it seem they're not working hand in hand?
Well, we wouldn't know, because do you expect them to come to the public or come in the open to tell us that this is what they have done or this is what they've not done? The only thing I saw in the media is a letter from Foreign Affairs Ministry alerting people to get set, that they are talking to Cameroon, that Cameroon has warned that very soon they are going to release water from the dam. And what do you expect Cameroon to do? It's a natural phenomenon. It's not a deliberate thing. Cameroon is not doing it to punish anybody. They have to secure their own environment too. So the same is even applicable to us in Nigeria. If Kainji Dam is going to be overflooded, do you expect when we have a dam disaster, when the dam will burst? You don't. There is a certain level it will reach. You have to release the water. You have to shed the water. And that is where this impact will start coming. So you don't even blame Cameroon for what is about to happen. Right. It has happened the first time. It has happened the second time. We had to look at all sides to it. Now, they have alerted us. And we ought to have even anticipated that it could still repeat itself. And it's repeating back to back because of this effect of global warming. You can see the interval between 2012 and 2022. It took almost 10 years before we had that experience last year. And now, another one is coming close by. So it is expected of us, if we believe we are a very responsible government, to plan, when we are done with this, to start planning early enough for next year, for 2024. Whether it comes or it does not come. We have to look at how to resettle people on higher grounds, places that we know that flood will not get to. And if they are close to communities where you have maybe security, you have military or police posts and all that. If you're doing the IDP camp or resettlement centers for people that are displaced, you put it close to where there will be security so that the place will remain for the next year. And they should do the arrangement in such a way that they do it in tranches. If you do this year, the extent you get to, you plan for next year, you build additional ones. It can be like shelters for people who are like farmers, who do shifting cultivation when you're talking of agriculture and all that, who have to tilt here. Next year, they'll think of moving the other side so that this area, the fertility of the soil will get better and so on and so forth. You focus on that, but with a larger picture. That it's not only the farmers, the community will have to move. And will have to move out with their, valuable items. The ones they cannot move, they will leave it there. And whatever they make of it or whatever they get out of it after the flood, so be it.
So be it. Whatever they get out of it. That's, it brings me to another question. should there be some sort of compensation when people are displaced against their will? Albeit it's to save lives, but then shouldn't government compensate them in one way or
Let me be
another?
frank with you. If things like this happen in civilized clime and overseas, they make provision for them, for that. Like during the winter, when they have excessive winter, they provide food, they provide some token by way of allowances, cash transfers to those people that are displaced. Like where you have hurricane or where you have tornado, forest fire and all that, flooding and so on and so forth. They do that. But in Nigeria, if you look at the size of the population and look at the paucity of funds and look at the gross mismanagement by the past leadership, you'll be wondering where the money will come from. And look at the debt profile. We are talking of 77 to 81 trillion that we are owing domestically and internationally. How are we going to pay that? Even the concern by the federal government that we are spending over 90% of IGR, internally generated revenue, to service the debts. So when are we going to come out of all this mess? And then you now add the cost of governance, the number of ministers, the portfolios, the political appointments, and it is worrisome. Very, very worrisome.
All right, now I hate to compare, especially compare Nigeria to other countries, but we know that the population of Nigeria, which should be a blessing, but is what we are counting as part of the reasons the government might not be able to, help everybody, is cannot be truly compared to California, can it? Can we compare?
How can you do that? But California as a state is richer than, in fact, there's no country in Africa that can compete with California as a state. No matter how rich, whether you call it South Africa or Egypt, go and check out their GDP. California is on the top notch. But yet they still have earthquake, they have all these flood, they
Natural
have tornadoes,
disasters.
all those natural disasters.
And they find a way to take care of people.
Exactly. They take, they more than take care of people. And let me even tell you one thing. The governor of California does not fly on private jets. But in Nigeria, virtually all the governors go on private jets.
Well, I think the president is making plans to curb all of that. Don't you think so?
And the governor of California does not move in convoy. He moves only on his vehicle. No escorts. If he moves in convoy, within 24 or 48 hours, he'll be removed. He can't be governor again in that state. From which resources is he going to deploy that? It's unfortunate. We have a very long way to go.
Now, let's deviate a bit. Nigerians have been concerned about the sharing of palliative brought about by the removal of subsidy. Nigerians have been worried. The 5 billion given to states, the 100,000 bags of grains. Nigerians have been asking the question of how will these things be done? What are they waiting for? The suffering is biting harder. Why haven't we started receiving some of these things? And the president said, look, don't come to me crying. I mean, I'm not using his exact words now, but he said, the governors are democratically elected. If they are not performing, vote them out. I cannot tell them how and how to share the monies that have been given to them. What do you make of that statement? In light with people not receiving what is due unto them due to some sort of disaster taking place.
You know, the thing is this. There are 3 layers of government. You have the federal government, you have the states, you have the local government. There are responsibilities that the state governors and the local government chairmen are expected to fulfill and perform. Everything is not for federal government. So are we saying that we're expecting the president to come and tell them how to begin to share? It's not done. He has given them he has confidence in them. he does not even have the wherewithal to begin to distribute directly from the center. So he has to channel it through the state governments, who will in turn use their local governments to do the distribution. But the truth of the matter and the concern everybody is having is, what criteria are you using to do the distribution? Some governors are telling us that they are compiling the social register. At the end of the day, the question is, how genuine and how authentic will those social registers be? Because to an extent, the governor is there busy doing other things that to move his state forward. So he cannot leave his office to come and begin to look at register. How many did you get here? Are they authentic? Are they genuine? These are still part of the problem. So as the thing is coming, some people are planning how they will make their millions out of it. Some must have even gone to get warehouses where they will divert this. You hear stories. It's just a question of time. The distribution will be another issue altogether, both in the cash and in the foodstuff.
Oh well. Oh well. Let's bring it back home now to the Lagdo Dam, the release of water.
Yes.
NEMA saying, look, that they have taken all, they've considered everything, and they are ready, but they're giving Nigerians seven days to relocate. What's your final thought on how this can be done differently, or how this can be averted in the future?
Well,
Final
like
thoughts.
I said, once the thing is over, I project by end of October, it must have receded totally. When it comes to an end, they now have to be more serious, because it is now perennial. It is not something you say it comes once in a decade. They should start planning on time. Whatever resources is available to them, number one, they will continue sensitization to the people. And even advise those of them who can afford to move off the river banks and the lowland areas. Let them think of, if it is possible, if the government can afford, they should give them lands on highland areas. If it is possible, they should even give it to them free of charge or with payment of small token, do the necessary paperwork, and make them to move seamlessly between now and the next 1 year. Those who can afford can move in and build, so that they don't end up being forced to go to school or go to community centers or to hospitals to go and stay for 1 or 2 months. Because they don't have a choice. That is why they find themselves going to stay in those places. Will you be in the open? You'll be beaten by the rains. Will you be sleeping in the forest? You might be attacked by wild animals and even unknown gunmen. So the dangers are numerous. That is why we have to take cognizance of the welfare of the people we govern. Think of something that will be sustaining, and begin to build on it. Take it step by step, take them in tranches, and at the same time continue to sensitize the people, so that by the time that of 2024 will come, if it's going to come, they would have been set. Some would have even moved completely from those lowland areas and banks of the river Niger and the river Benue.
All right then. Thank you very much, CP Chooks. Now, in our second topic for today, the president and his men, 1 week after, have held their first executive council meeting, and they had a lot to say. And expectations are high. Now we'll take what they have said, one by one, and see which is realistic and which may not be. After all, we begin with, we'll just look at a few things that have been said by the ministers. Now let's begin with the minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike. He's my man.
Yes.
I cannot like him. Well, he said he appears to be matching words with action.
Exactly.
He did say that those who have built houses in areas where they were not supposed to build will have their houses pulled down. Now he's matching that with action by marking houses that will be brought down because of breaking of the law, building where they're not supposed to build, and all of that. What do you make of that statement going forward? Can Wike pull the muscle, all right, to pull down some of the most, what I would call, gigantic buildings in Abuja?
I think he can do that. He can do that. El Rufai did the same thing. El Rufai brought down a federal government building in Mabushi, the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing Property, that was built on the wrong place. He got it down. I think either the chief of naval staff official residence or something was also brought down in 2007. And the then president Obasanjo gave him blessing to go ahead and do that.
Okay.
And I foresee the same thing happening now. As
You
we
think he
speak,
has the blessing of
the president.
of the
And
president?
as we speak, one house is already down in Abuja. You know, not the one that collapsed.
Yes, yes.
They brought down one. They said that belongs to one prominent Oba from the southwest who had, I don't know, maybe the building must have had defective structural defects or something, you know.
Defect.
And they may have put a stop work order on it. And the people would have, maybe the contractor and the owner would have been running around to see how they'll get it sorted out or rectified. They have brought it down already. And you see, Wike is building on what he met on ground. From the briefing he received from his directors, there is already a list of about 6,000 buildings that should go down. Some of them are in some estates. Some of them have no approval. Some of them have defects in structures that they cannot continue with that. Some even built on the wrong places. You know, so we are going to see spate of demolitions. But it appears that most of the demolitions they are going to do, people are not inhabiting in those buildings.
Okay.
It is not as if there are structures where people are already living. There are just few that are occupied by people, and those ones were built in maybe water lines, areas where.
So you think people just built these houses and abandoned them?
Not necessarily. You mean which of their houses are you talking about?
The ones that are marked for demolition, out of the 6,000 houses.
Well, they, like I'm saying, they have criteria, and the owners already know that they have gone on the wrong side of the rule. You know, for instance, how can you go and build in a green area, or how can you go and build in controversial areas where maybe government has marked for a particular purpose? You go and do change of use without authorization, and maybe it's kept for like either school to be built there or hospital to be built there. Suddenly you see a mini housing estate, springing up there. And unfortunately for people who are keen in to be buyers of those buildings, they don't have all the facts or the information. All they know is that they are desperate to be landlords or owners of property in FC.
Okay, now let's look at another thing that Wike has also said.
Yes.
He has said that the Abuja rail tracks will come alive in 8 months. The possibility of that.
Well, where there is a will, there is always a way. I think he visited those places. Everybody has his or her own priorities. And he took the contractors, the Chinese, to visit those sites. And the Chinese are ever ready once there's a push on them. And I'm sure the way the man did 12 bridges within 4 years in Port Harcourt is enough reason for me to believe that he will match his words with action.
With action.
Yes.
All right, let's look at Minister of Works now, Dave Umahi.
Yes, Umahi is an engineer by training. And he has done similar thing in Ebonyi. And in his own case, he's very prudent from what I heard from those who come from that area that I've been relating with. to the extent that many don't like him because he does more of direct labor thing. Umahi is ready to go to market and buy the cement directly, so that
Okay.
you don't come and begin to quote nonsense for him. And what he has said, that good number of roads that the federal government will do now, he'll be looking at not using asphalt because of the extent of failure.
Yes, he did say
He will go
concrete
more of
roads.
concrete roads, because these concrete roads will last for like 50 years.
That's what he said. He
Yes,
said,
like if you look at the one Dangote did on this swap thing between, on tax, Federal Inland Revenue and Dangote group of companies. They did one road from
Well, there's a
Oworo-Shokito.
school of thought.
Yes.
There's a school of thought that feels concrete roads have a negative impact on tires. Do you fall into that school of thought?
What we are talking of is the roads that will last. People should be ready to go and buy tires that are concrete friendly and use those ones. Let me even tell you one thing. There is one lady I saw in Air France some years back. I was flying from US through Paris back to, that would have been like 15 years ago. I was discussing with her. Well, she happens to be one of the air hostesses in Air France. And I asked her, how are you coping when there is winter? She told me that there are tires designed for the winter. That what she does is that as winter is approaching, she removes the regular tire and keep them in her garage and put the
tire.
ones that are meant for winter and still use them. So she still drives around during winter. Because the time we were discussing this was in a December. You know, it was like 3 or 4 days to Christmas. So I was hurrying to get back to Nigeria before the Christmas day. So in fact, that flight is a Boeing 777 that should take ordinarily 300 and something passengers. We ended up being about 50 something passengers in the aircraft. So that was what brought about the discussion. We were delayed because there was no fall.
Okay.
And you see, their prediction is wonderful. They told us that once it's 12 o'clock, 12 noon, the snow will stop and will fly. So once it was 12, we were not asked to move. But I got worried because I looked at the aircraft, the body, the wings, thick snow of almost 1 foot. But they still have their antidote. They used one chemical that was gold in color to spray on. We queued and they were cleaning all the aircraft one after the other. So they will clean it totally for
And
you
then
to
you
take
take
off.
Okay, now let's look at another thing that Dave Umahi has also said. He says files will not stay more than 2 hours in any office. Files should not stay more than 2 hours in any civil servant's office. We understand the bureaucracy
Yes.
in civil service.
Yes.
You have been a civil servant.
Exactly.
You understand this. Do you see the feasibility of this?
Well, like I said, once you have the will, there is likely to be the way. I see that if he puts pressure on the staff of the Federal Ministry of Works, they will live up to what he has marked out as a priority. I mean, what exactly is the file doing on the table? Push it. Do your own bit and push it. Why are you keeping it? You see, what he's trying to say is that those who believe in keeping those files are corrupt public officers. Maybe they are delaying it so that contractor will shake body and quickly come and settle them for the file to move, which is anachronistic. We cannot continue like that. We should be forward-looking and do things that will better the society.
Well, the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, he has assured Nigerians of improved power supply across the nation. And he also says this is going to be as soon as possible. Now, he made this statement when he addressed journalists at the Ladoke Akintola Airport sometime last week. You know, improved power supply as soon as possible.
That statement is a political statement.
Okay.
Yes.
Why do you think so?
Why I think so is that what does he have on ground to improve the power supply? This is grammar we have been hearing from 1999 to 2007 of the then Olusegun Obasanjo's government, his regime. By then, the economy was even sound and buoyant. They could not do it. Fashola came in 15 and promised us that before 4 years, so and so megawatts will be tripled, quadrupled, and all that. What did we see? We are still back from where we started. We are doing one step forward, two steps backward. So I don't take the message of the Minister of Power very seriously. I don't take it as something that is realizable. That as soon as possible is not something to take to heart.
Okay. You don't think that can work?
I don't think it will work. We need to tell ourselves the truth.
Okay. But I thought you were, of the belief that where there is a will, there is a way.
Well, I've mentioned the ones that
where the will and way can
the
work.
ones I believe are practicable. This one is not practicable.
All right, let's look at defense now.
Okay.
Minister of Defense have asked the service chiefs to give them a timeline on how they deal with insecurity. Give him a timeline and then, swing into action.
We have been hearing that grammar from the time Boko Haram started. That was about 14 years back.
12, 14 years ago.
12, 14 years back. And they'll tell us they have already overwhelmed Boko Haram, they've wiped them out. The next day, you see counter attack that will even sack more communities than the ones. You see, the thing is this, giving them timeline is not the solution. What I have expected them to do is to bring together all the people that are involved in the theater of war, the military, the police, the DSS, and so on and so forth, and ask them, what are your challenges? How are we going to go about it? Look at the way some soldiers lost their lives, unfortunately, in Niger State. They ran into ambush, and they lost so many souls. Number one, the timing was not good because they did the movement in dark hours. Even if it is early hours of the morning, it was still under the cover of the darkness. And ambush is a very serious thing. It's taking you unawares, and there's no preparation you will do to be able to fully counter because you don't know the directions they have covered. That is one. Then two, the logistics. I am of the school of thought that if you are not prepared, then don't expose the people. What about armor-treated, armor-plated vehicles, APCs? If those men were in APCs, what happened wouldn't have happened. Some of them were in Hilux vehicles. So all the expenses that has been made in the past that they are buying and importing APCs or assembling some here locally in Nigeria, where are those equipments? Because when you're entering a dangerous terrain, like a highly forested area, I mean, you're exposed to very, very serious danger. And if you have something like those tanks or armored vehicles, if they open fire on you, you now know what to do. At least there's no way you not minimize the casualty to very limited, very, very limited number. These are things you ought to call those commanders and discuss with them. Not telling them to give you timeline. Unless you are expecting them to go and commit suicide. God forbid it. For them to do it anyhow. We have passed that stage and that level.
All right.
So there has to be synergy between the ground forces, which is the army, and the air force. So that they need to do more on recce, on intelligence, concerning some of the targeted areas. Then Air Force will need to go and do area surveillance. And if possible, if they can identify camps of some of those miscreants, they will use air power and neutralize the place, destroy those camps. And then from air to ground, They will pass information that we have neutralized this area, you can move. And you see that you won't get resistance as you're moving. And then, if you have your trucks carrying the infantry, those ones will be at the back. While the ones...
That'll be an easier way to do it.
Yes. You see, these things are things we are all taught in the classroom. Those of us who have been commanders, especially in striking forces. I was in the mobile police. I commanded a squadron for like 5 years plus. Those are things when we go, we do it in training and sometimes in practice. If you are directed to be part of the team, that will go and quell crisis. So we shouldn't throw away what we have been taught theoretically when it comes to practice. So these are the areas I have expected the defense minister and his minister of state to look at.
All right.
To minimize casualty.
All right. Let's look at Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun. He has said that this administration inherited a bad economy.
Of course.
And he has also said that the administration cannot borrow money anymore, which of course Nigerians are tired of, the borrowing.
Of course.
How do you think the administration will now raise enough money, take care of Nigeria's debt, which is in the trillions, and still run the economy?
That is where we need a robust and solid economic team. They should go and borrow people like SLS, former governor of Central Bank. Borrow Soludo, that does not mean that he will still not be governor. Okay. He can be governor and be part of the team. Look for Adeosun Kenny, who was former minister, and bring her back to join the team.
Okay.
Look for people like Okonjo Iweala. She will still be heading the World Trade Organization and be part of it because there's an emergency. If you package a robust team, there's no way we will not move forward. They will try the much they can to block all the leakages, all the loopholes. And if they will want to take papers from us, we will say that they should compel the president to reduce the number of ministers as well as the governors. Cut down people holding public offices, all those political office holders. Cut them drastically. You tell them, thank you, at least we have settled you, we've given you position for a while. The reality of the economy is that you cannot continue to be there. Shrink some ministries, based on Oresania's paper report. Then look at areas of taxation. All the leakages, a lot of people are on tax holidays where we are supposed to be making huge sums of money for the government. We have to focus on those areas.
And you think this will come down on the common man at the end of the day?
Yes, it will. Because for the common man, you can give them a lot of relief. People earning salaries below 200,000, you can exempt them from tax payments. But hit the ones that are money bags. Those in the oil and gas, the multinational, not necessarily multiple taxation, genuine appropriate taxes. Then as we are doing this, we should also focus on production. How do we bring in industrialists, foreign investors, and encourage even the local industries? We should discourage all this massive importation. Let us encourage the local industries. We should also focus on agriculture so that we can grow enough food and discourage importation of food. Feed ourselves, have some in strategic reserve, and export cash crops to earn foreign exchange. And if we are doing this, you see the economy will start picking up again. But that those who will be responsible for achieving this should be people who are selfless, who are dedicated, who are patriotic, who are altruistic, and have the common man and the interest of nation at heart. That's the only way we will get there.
And do we have these people on ground?
Sorry?
Do we have these people?
Well, once we have people who are prepared to help, I think we'll get to the next level.
All right, I must say a very big thank you to you, CP Chooks.
Thank you very much.
All right, we've been speaking with CP Chooks, who is a former commissioner of police, Oyo State. And well, that's it on the show today. That's it on Political Voice. I must say a very big thank you to you for joining us in this conversation. We'd like for you to go to our YouTube page, subscribe, and let us know what you think about events happening around you, and also what you think about the shows that we have right here on VOP TV. Now, you do know that you can watch the show anytime just by logging into our YouTube page. I am Moses Humphrey. On behalf of the team, I say thanks for watching. Have a beautiful day.